I don't know why I didn't go through with
Okay,
SJ's.
we are live on air. So today we have a very special treat for everybody on my humble little channel. Powerful woman of God, Heather, is here to tell us all about her Christian faith and what she does on Twitter and why she does it on Twitter and how she eats atheists for breakfast. And and Heather, you want to introduce yourself to the people, to the good people of YouTube?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you, Craig, for having me on. It's good to be here. I haven't done one of these live shows in quite a while, so it's good to be here again and have a connection. My computer crashed last summer, so I had to reload and get situated all over again. But so I'm
What
back.
happened? You had a laptop and it fried or something?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really a computer person. So all I know is I kept getting messages saying your computer's full. So I tried to keep dumping more and I was deleting and erasing. And I was trying to figure out, I was trying to just get rid of, apps that I didn't use, stuff like that.
Right,
And it
right.
never seemed to be enough. And so, you know,
When I first started streaming, you should ask Stephanie about that because I was doing practice runs with her. Then they weren't intended to be practice runs. I could just never figure out how to actually broadcast onto YouTube. I was trying to stream it off my phone. Godless Cranium, I had him, I think twice. I scheduled shows with him and then couldn't figure out how to run the broadcast. And he was like, he eventually goes to Stephanie. I don't think it's going to work today. I don't think he really knows what he's doing. It's
yeah.
really funny.
Well, you know what,
But
Craig? It's a little tricky. If you've never done a live YouTube kind of a recording before, if anybody's listening to this and you've never done something like this and you might want to try, I think there's actually a couple of different ways that you can
well,
actually do this. I
oh
think
yeah,
there's
there's
some people like the non sequitur show. I have no idea how they get plugged into these, but I don't think it's probably through Hangouts. Do you
no, not
think?
anymore. When I haven't been on that show in a long time, but originally it was Skype they were using. I don't think they're using Skype now. It looks like something different. There's a whole bunch of different, like every day they come up with new apps and there's Streamlabs, there's Zoom is the one that Steve McRae was using, it looked like today. I use Google because, like you, I'm kind of technophobic. So once I get used to something on tech, I get really uncomfortable when it switches because these things are counterintuitive to me. Like I'm not that dumb, but these things make me feel dumb because how the
Well, you,
geeks wire them up is totally counterintuitive. Like it took me a while to even figure out Twitter. Go ahead.
yeah, some people don't know, they're clueless when it comes to Twitter. There's different, I'm still learning different things here and there about Twitter, but I'm kind of getting the hang of it over there. So, with these live recordings, I just have an app called Hangouts. So, if anybody's listening to this and they want to try to do this, all you really do is log into that. And then somehow, I don't know how you get your link, but somehow you get your link and I just click on it. And then,
Yeah.
so yeah, it was
The
pretty simple.
I it's a generational thing too because I have friends who are my age, like 49 or so, and I've told them you guys should go on Twitter. You'd love it. Twitter can be really fun. And I swear they have no idea how to use it. They've built Twitter accounts and they did exactly what I did for like the first 4 months on Twitter. They just kind of they'll put a tweet out here and there, have no idea who's seeing it, no idea what they're doing. So they just sort of gave up. I have a lot of friends like that, like 10.
Yeah.
Facebook is relatively easy. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Twitter has just a different format, really. I'm an author. I've got 7 published books, and so I have a lot of author friends, and they're very creative and intelligent, and they have books published, and they know how to write a good story and all that. But when it comes to Twitter, there's just it's hard to figure out
Yeah.
what you need to do, and then some people get on Twitter and all they do is they'll say something and they don't really interact with anybody. Have you noticed that? And so I
Yes,
guess,
that's exactly where my
yeah.
friends are at. They'll just tweet something, And Twitter is actually, we don't recognize it now because we've used it a lot, but it's counterintuitive. You don't automatically understand who's seeing your tweet and why. The first time I used
Right.
Twitter, I remember I went to what's her face? Who's the Wall Street Journal columnist? Peggy Noonan. And I tweeted something about Hillary Clinton. And I just assumed she saw it. I just like pushed send, and I was like, of course, I didn't know at the time that nobody read that tweet. I said something like
Right.
Hillary Clinton running for president, blah blah blah, and then I pressed send, and no, maybe one person read the tweet, but it's counterintuitive. You don't
Yeah.
quite get it till you have to use it a little, and then all tech is kind of like that, and tech heads
Yeah,
are
that's it.
and tech heads love the fact that it's confusing to outsiders, so they kind of keep it that way. That's a big part of it too, because they feel
Yeah,
smart
right.
getting to know it quickly.
Just recently, for some reason, saw a tweet, I think from Sean Hannity, and it was kind of like going viral. You know how the numbers like start going really fast when people start retweeting it and
Right.
stuff like that. And so I was like, what is this all about? And so I was going to leave a comment there. So of course, I tweeted, but he's probably never going to see it. I mean,
Oh no, there's no way.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
will say this, the cool thing about Twitter, not necessarily people like Sean Hannity who have like 1 million followers or so, but
uh-huh,
there are people. Do you know that there's a Democrat on Fox News? I used to interact with her actually and DM with her, because if you pick people who are lower down in the pecking order, like not as well known, but like they'll sometimes see your tweets depending on how many followers they have.
yeah.
Jessica Tarlov, do you know her?
Hmm.
You probably know who that is,
Maybe
right?
if I saw her, I'm not sure.
You saw you did. She's the one with the voice like this. She's a Democrat. She's nice. She's really nice. She was nice to me on Twitter. But
Uh-huh.
she talks like this. Everyone makes fun of her voice because she's kind of got an annoying voice. You'd
Yeah,
recognize her
well,
immediately.
you know what, Craig? Some people use the direct message, but some people do not use it at all. And, so there's like a whole bunch of different people that use Twitter differently.
Right.
So, and then trying to talk in the thread is kind of tricky too. Sometimes it gets a little confusing in the threads. Who's talking to who and who's answering who
Right. Yeah.
and all of that.
I still, that can still throw people. I noticed that today with Digital Hammurabi. He was, somebody said, I didn't mean that way about your wife. And he's like, oh, wow, Twitter's really new to me. I must have totally misunderstood what you meant. And I
Yeah,
think it
well,
was
you know
just
what?
like,
I really like Twitter because I like to see, what people are saying. I'm a reader, so I like to go on there and read what people are saying. And, I have probably liked so many tweets. I'm sure I'm up into the tens of thousands.
right.
um, and so I do a lot of reading. I like to see what people are saying and, what they think about things. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm on Twitter. And then, you know what? I read somewhere that Twitter is really good for agreeing and disagreeing. And I thought, well, that's a really good place for people who like to debate. They can go
Yeah,
onto Twitter
absolutely.
and give their opinion and, um,
The other thing I love about Twitter that continuously blows my mind is, let's take, for example, Renee, the German atheist. I'll wake up sometimes and be in a conversation with Renee in real time, and he's in Germany. That blows. If you think about
yeah.
that, it really blows my mind. A lot of the people we interact with are from like England, Australia, Germany, and you're sort of interacting with them on the spot. He'll wake up at like, I guess it's 3 in the morning for me. I noticed where sometimes he starts his little runs where he starts commenting on things. So sometimes before I'm going to bed, I'll see him tweeting and I'll be talking to him in real
Uh-huh.
time while he's in Germany and I'm, right about to fall asleep in California. Now,
Yeah,
let's
that's
before we
that's interesting you brought that up because people all over the world can use Twitter. And so, my Twitter handle is HM Schult, which is not easy to find because people don't spell my last name correctly some of the time. Um,
right,
but it's SCHULDT. And so, but people all over the world can really tweet, which means if you have your notifications on, somebody could be tweeting you in the middle of the night, but they're just on the other side of the world. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Totally.
So anyway, I
That's
do.
what's,
Yeah. So during the day, sometimes I turn my Twitter notifications on just so I can hear back from somebody. Because once in a while, I'll talk to somebody who's an atheist, or, they might be agnostic, and they'll ask me a question. And so if I don't get back to them like really fast, sometimes they get really rude. And
oh,
so,
wow.
um,
I
it,
when I first got on Twitter, people used to be rude to me a lot. Doesn't happen very much anymore. Now let's
yeah.
talk about let me ask you before we go on.
Okay.
Um Tell me about, so you've been a Christian your whole life, correct?
Well, not really my whole life. I mean, I remember when I was, I became a Christian when I was little. But I do remember not knowing about Jesus when I was little. I do remember going to church and people talking about this Jesus on the cross. So I do remember not understanding
Mm,
what the big deal was. So I
okay.
do remember just a short, amount of time of not knowing the gospel, the gospel story.
So
Um,
okay. So there was a
yeah,
time before you were a Christian.
yes, yes. I wouldn't
And
say
then
my
you
whole life, but I was very young, maybe 5 or 6. I don't know how old I was. But my parents switched to an evangelical church. And of course, over there, they taught about Jesus and his life, and, the historical Jesus, who he was, what he did, stuff like that. And
and
so, yeah.
you're a how do you classify the type of Christian that you are? Non-denominational, is that you?
Yeah. Well, when I became a Christian, I went to a church called First Federated Church. It was in
Uh-huh.
Iowa, and it was non-denominational. And so, but it was very evangelistic. They didn't really label themselves that way, but
Right.
they were just gospel centered.
Uh-huh.
And so I don't really label myself with a denomination. I'm not really into that. I've been to a number of different churches just because we've lived all over the country. And so I've
Yeah,
been
where do
to,
you live now?
yeah.
I saw something you posted about Newport Beach. Newport Beach is right down the road from me. Wait,
Yeah,
what was the
so I lived in Anaheim Hills.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
so that's where I went to high school.
Oh, you're
Um,
kidding.
yeah, do you know anybody from
Oh,
there?
well, no, but my cousins all live there.
Oh,
It's really nice there. I mean, I don't know
yeah.
specifically Anaheim Hills, but that
Uh-huh.
Newport Beach, that whole area is fantastic. That's about an hour south of me. Maybe less. Yeah, no, about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour south. Huntington Beach is right around there. All those cool beach towns. Those towns are fantastic. They're so nice.
Yeah,
We would go
they
down there
are.
and just stay in hotels on the beach, just so, and they're like little resort areas.
Well,
I
Corona
don't,
del Mar is really cute, and then Newport Beach has some really nice, cute, private little areas. But so Calvary Church was the church that made a big announcement one time on the radio. I happened to, listen to the radio, and Pastor Chuck Smith made this big announcement, and he just said, if you want to get baptized, come on down. And he said the date and the time, and, down at Pirates Cove, and I knew where that was at. So I drove down there, and that's where I was baptized. Yeah.
cool.
So that was
And
a long time ago.
that's that's where you went to high school in
No,
that area?
no, I didn't go to high school in Newport Beach. I went to high school in Anaheim Hills.
Okay.
And so, yeah, but Chuck Smith's church is in Costa Mesa. Yeah, so all
Okay.
of that's Orange County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it kind of has a bad reputation across the country, but it shouldn't because it's actually a phenomenally nice place. It's really nice there,
Okay, I
especially on the
have to
beach.
ask
The
you.
beach is
Wait a minute, I have to ask you. So, what do you think it has a reputation for?
as like just like Republican Central. I don't know. You say Orange County, and a certain type of person will just automatically go, "Ew, Orange County." my my cousin, it's a political thing. Where do
Uh-huh.
you live now, though? You live in what?
Yeah,
South Dakota or something?
that's
No,
funny.
South
So,
Carolina.
Well, yeah. So right now we are in North Carolina.
Okay, North Carolina.
Yeah. So, but
Wow.
we have lived all over, and I've been to a number of different churches all around the country. I mean, we've been to mostly evangelical churches. Like in Pennsylvania, we lived there. We went to Jay Passavant's church. He was the head pastor at the time. He's retired since we lived there, but he was the head pastor there for like, he's the original pastor that founded it. And so he was there just for a long time. And it was a very evangelical church. It's called Northway Community Church.
Right.
So yeah, so I don't, it's not really an official denomination, but I just always try to find,
A
good.
pastor that you like and where you think
Yes.
there's strong Bible teaching and a good congregation of people. So you kind of go by how you feel about the place spiritually is my guess, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's just, night and day to me when I walk into a church. And if they're teaching the Bible, I just feel comfortable. I feel fed. I feel like I'm lifted up and encouraged. And then if they're not really Bible focused, it just kind of feels shallow. And
Right.
so I can tell a big difference. Yeah.
Now you had Christmas in North Carolina, correct? And this is North Carolina the Bible Belt? Is that officially considered part of the Bible Belt?
It is the Bible Belt. Billy Graham's ministry is here, and so he has
Oh
had a
wow.
huge impact on this area. And of course, Franklin Graham is here in this area too, and so they've had a big influence as far as the gospel message. And then they just welcome Christianity a lot more here, from what I've noticed. Um,
Yeah. Have you even been to New York City?
I have been to New York City. I went there to a NASCAR banquet actually several years ago. It was maybe in December. And so we stayed at the Waldorf Hotel.
Oh,
And then
cool.
Kevin
Can't argue with
Costner,
that.
what's that?
Can't argue with that. That sounds awesome. Kevin Costner, what?
Well, Kevin Costner was like the host of the NASCAR banquet ceremony. So he was there. And then I think Jimmy Johnson was the winner that year. So he was there. And then, of course, a number of other NASCAR drivers. But, I was there for that. But no, I haven't really spent very much time in New York City. And when my daughter turned, I think, 11, I took her and a friend to New York City, and we went to see Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, cool.
And we did, some other things. We went to the American Girl place and things like that. But we were standing in line, to see Beauty and the Beast. We were all excited. And then there was a sign, and it said starring um, Donny Osmond as
Oh, no
Gaston. I was like,
way.
wow, that's Donny
Awesome.
Osmond. And then my daughter and her friend are like, who's Donny Osmond? So,
Yeah, that's
um,
totally different.
but it was
Go
really
ahead.
cool because it was like sold out, and then the crowd was super awesome, of course. And then when Donny Osmond came out on stage, it was this big dramatic appearance on stage, and everybody was like, cheering and
Freaking out.
clapping. Yeah, and they were like, wow.
That's
So
so funny. All right, two stories. The
yeah.
first story is where I grew up. Um, yeah, I grew up in a totally secular environment. I didn't know any Christians in high school. I mean, people were nominally Christian. Like
Wow,
I
where
went to
at?
Westchester, outside of New York City, suburbs of New York City.
Okay,
So
Westchester.
a really, really secular community.
Okay.
Most of my friends were Jewish. The people who were like Roman Catholic or Protestant went to church on like Christmas or Easter, but there was no. It was the
Yeah.
opposite of the Bible Belt. Like the one thing I was telling Drew when I was talking to him, the one thing it was not kosher to be was a Christian. Like people get
Right.
really weirded out if you
Yeah.
said like, "Hey man, I became a Christian," be like, "Yeah," but everything else was
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
And someone commented on that video because they were like, where did this guy go? There's no place in America because he's from the Bible Belt. So he just assumed that everything is like North Carolina, where Christianity kind of permeates the atmosphere. But it's really not. You go to other parts of
No.
the country and it's totally different. The second story is
Yeah.
Donny Osmond. somebody called me. I think it was Blanco Indian called me the Fonzie of apologetics or something like that, referencing Happy Days. And I'm thinking to myself, because my nephew doesn't even know who that is.
Uh-huh.
He wouldn't even know who Donny Osmond is, I don't think.
Fonzie,
And
Fonzie, yeah.
and it was so much a part of, like, when we were growing up, like there was so much more a part of, a TV show that was really popular like that. Every
Hmm.
single solitary person watched it. There's nothing like that anymore. There's no like TV show that everybody knows the reference to, these days.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
when I lived in California, my sister lived in San Bernardino, and so,
Yeah,
no, I'm no, I'm sorry,
that's a
I'm sorry, no,
beautiful.
wrong, wrong, wrong. I'm wrong. She lived
I knew
in,
it. I knew it. I wasn't gonna say it, but
no, no,
I knew
no,
you were
no,
wrong.
no. She lived in Santa Monica. Big
Oh
difference,
wow,
right?
yeah, Santa Monica's right here. I live right near Santa Monica.
Yeah.
Santa Monica's right down the road.
So I went to Santa Monica, to visit her quite a bit. And she had, her husband's family was in that area, Pasadena and stuff. But do you remember when Batman came out with Michael Keaton?
Yes.
Yeah, because we went to the Man's Chinese Theater in Hollywood to see that. And
Oh,
it
that's
was
cool.
really super cool because,
That's fun.
I mean, we all had to wait outside, of course, and the crowd was just huge. I mean, it was just enormous. And so, of course, we got there early because we wanted to get in and get a good seat because the people that we were with were like, we have to get good seats at the Man's Chinese Theater. And
Yeah,
so,
we did that. When we first
yeah,
moved out here, we did that with there was that Nicolas Cage movie, Scorsese. It's not a very good Scorsese film. We saw it there though. Bringing
at
Up
the
the
Man's
Dead or
Chinese
something.
Theater.
Yeah, when we first moved out here, we did a lot of those like tourist type things. All of them actually, and that was one of the big ones. Go to Hollywood and go to the Man's Chinese. And
Well, I will
um,
say that the crowd is totally different at the Man's Chinese Theater. So
yeah, oh,
it's
totally.
not your typical movie theater. Um, but yeah, you're right about how, certain areas, they're not really warm and friendly to Christian people. And, you're like the outsider or even an attitude of what's wrong with you? Why, why are
Right.
you a
No,
Christian?
what's wrong with you? Why are you exactly? That's why I kind of understand the way the atheists are, because
Yes.
the places where I grew up, people would be like that too. That's the most of outside of the people I know on Twitter and here in California that I've met through Christianity.
Uh-huh.
Nobody I know is a Christian. Nobody I grew up with. Nobody. None of my friends from high school or college. They
Wow.
they a little bit now, like they're weird. They've kind of moved a little towards faith. Some of them, but most of them were completely secular. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
weird for
that's
a Bible Belt
interesting.
person. That's like a different planet.
Well,
But
you know what? We have been here since 2007. And so this is really the longest that we've ever, lived in one state. But we came from Pennsylvania. And, Pennsylvania, they have very friendly people. I mean,
right,
if you want to be friends with all your neighbors, I mean, they're really outgoing, I do have to say. Um, you know how certain places kind of have a different style, and
oh, totally,
I totally, saw how, of course, the people in Pittsburgh are Steeler fans, so everybody gets into the football games and wears their jerseys and stuff like that.
right.
But they were very outgoing and friendly. It's been a little bit harder to get to know neighbors here. I'm not sure what it is about neighbors, but I really have to go out of my way to try to, meet people and get to know my neighbors. And so it feels a little bit different here,
Right.
as opposed to Pennsylvania. But the really neat thing about North Carolina is that it's pretty normal if you're a Christian, you know.
Yes.
So it's a little, yeah.
That's what the Bible Belt is like. I mean, there's like 10 churches in every town you go into, and like, well, a lot of the atheists grew up like that. Like, you talk to somebody like Objectively Dan, I've got an interview with him, and all his friends were Christian. He grew up like that. Everybody he knows is Christian. Everyone in his family was Christian. That's how a lot of these people grew up.
Yeah, well, my family is interesting because my dad was not necessarily a churchgoer,
Right,
but my mom was more of the Bible lady in the family. So I do remember her, having her Bible open and, praying and having her devotions alone, stuff like that. Um, and then I have two sisters. One was very liberal. She was a liberal Democrat. And so she got married and she used to march in, the gay and lesbian parades. She was married, she was heterosexual, but she just wanted everybody to be accepted. And she was actually hostile to Christianity
right,
because she thought Christianity was too narrow and they weren't loving to all people, that kind of a thing.
right. Totally.
Yeah, and so she was kind of stuck in that world where she didn't really want Christianity because she wanted all religions to be okay. She was very pluralistic, kind of
Right.
like the Hindus are. I don't know if you've talked to any Hindus lately, but the Hindus try
No,
to
I haven't
include,
actually.
yeah, they try to include everybody. I went to a Hindu festival. They're just so nice, really peaceful, loving, kind people, but they just want everybody to be included. They want to value Muslims, Christians, Jews, everybody.
Right.
So it's very pluralistic in the Hindu world. It's actually really hard to connect with them. If you want to talk to them about Jesus, they usually end up saying, well, Jesus is just one of the gods. And so
Right. One of the 300 million gods.
yeah.
The What tell us about your blog before because we don't have all that much time. So tell me what you do on
Okay.
Twitter and why are you on Twitter? How long you've been here? And you do a blog and you've wrote books apparently. So let's
Yeah.
hear about
Okay, well, that's kind of a lot. I'll try to go really fast.
it. Go fast.
So,
Well, we don't. I mean, I'll have you back on, but we don't have that much more time for this
okay.
broadcast.
So, let's
This
see
was just
here.
a practice run, kids. We
Yes.
were we were just testing this out. So
That's
it's an
right. Okay.
impromptu interview.
So let's see here. I do have a blog. I started my blog because I'm in seminary. I never thought I'd be in seminary. But the reason why I enrolled in seminary in 2016 was because I started to publish books. And so that's actually another whole long story where somebody from church actually told me that I should be an author because I'm a creative writer.
Right.
And so I never really saw myself as an author or writing stories. So what I did in 2012 was I started a fiction writing group and I started doing monthly short story contests and in the first month of April of 2012 I did one called April Beasts and I had 8 people submit their short stories, and we had a little contest, and we had a winner, and everybody voted for their favorite story, and so it just kind of took off from there. It was successful, and then so for 36 consecutive months, I just kept doing this contest every month, and it got really big. I mean, at one point. There were like 30 short stories to read that month, and it just felt like it was a lot. And
Weird.
I
Interesting.
kind of miss the good old days when it was smaller, when the
Right.
work was a little bit less. Um, but it was really fun. And then after 6 months of doing that, the writers were asking, to publish their short stories in a book because there were some really good short stories in there.
Hmm.
And so nobody really wanted to publish it. And I just, people were asking me if I would publish the short stories in a book. So that's when I began researching, how to edit properly, how to format and all that. And I did a bunch of research on copyright and, how to have an anthology and how to make sure, you don't get in trouble down the road and all that. So I published the first book and it's called Giant Tales Beyond the Mystic Doors. And then it
Okay.
had, I don't know, about 12 authors in that book. It was really fun. It turned out really good and everybody liked it a lot. We just wanted to keep going. And so, I ended up publishing 6 anthologies, and I just decided I just can't do this forever. And so, it was a really good learning experience. But then I decided I needed to go to seminary. I wanted to make sure my theology was right. And so so
Gotcha.
anyway, that's why I signed up. But I went to the conference, the National Apologetics Conference that SES holds every year in October.
Right.
And that's when I really started to learn, oh, apologetics is defending your faith. It's learning how to give reasons why you believe the Bible is the written word of God, why you believe Jesus is the Son of God, and so you give reasons for, what you believe, why you believe it. Why do you believe
Right.
in God? Are you just guessing that there's a God, or do you really have reasons to believe that there's a God? And I just decided this is very interesting. I need to do this. And so anyway, I enrolled in 2016. That was I took two classes, actually 2 classes, and then a third Skype. It was like a class on Skype with David Geisler. So I took that class. So I took really 3 classes my first semester.
Okay.
And I loved it. It was super awesome. And my first class was on atheism. And that's when I found out about Richard Dawkins and his God Delusion book. And
Oh,
I
wow. The
know,
class was on atheism?
yes,
Oh
I
my God.
did.
If
You
there's
have
any
to take the
atheists listening,
class.
you guys got to take that class. They would probably freak
Yeah.
out. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a
That's
really
funny.
good class. I definitely recommend it if you ever get a chance to take it. It's just eye-opening because you go over, we went over the cosmological argument, and we learned a lot about like how Aristotle discovered 4 causes. How people talk about the cause of the universe. There's actually 4 causes. And so it can get confusing to talk about the cause of the universe unless you know which cause you're talking about. So
Right.
Aristotle is the one, from 300 BC who actually discovered these 4 causes. And anyway, we learned a lot more about, metaphysics and epistemology. And, epistemology is how we know. And then ontologically speaking, that's more about the study of being, like
Right.
what is real, and what is the nature of something. So it's just interesting to, learn these things at a master's level. And I was really excited to get my master's degree. So I'm happy to announce I will be graduating, hopefully, if all goes well.
Cool.
I'll be finally graduating in the spring.
And
So
then when did you start your Twitter, and how does that feed?
yeah, so I don't know what year it is. I started Twitter. I don't know if it's 2012. I'm not sure. So
Oh,
I
wow.
started Twitter, and like every other person on Twitter, you don't really know what you're doing when you
Right.
first start. But then I started to get the hang of it and realize, to connect people, to connect with people and talk to people. Um, some people just tweet and they don't really talk to people, and it's kind of funny. But yeah, so I'm on Twitter because I like to read what people say, and I like to just, post some things about my blog. My blog is called Lady Apologist. So, and I don't really blog that much, like maybe 2 blogs a month, you know?
Is the blog
So
more apologetics or fiction writing, or what's the
no, it's not
focus?
fiction. Yeah, it's just on apologetics. It's on
Okay.
creation and, historical documents, stuff like that.
Did you ever try writing sermons? Just curious.
No, I have not. And, I don't really have a desire to be a pastor. Nobody
Right.
has
No,
asked me
I
to
wasn't thinking of
speak. So,
preaching. I was
uh-huh.
thinking of, have you ever thought like of writing them for somebody else to deliver?
Well, that's
Just a thought.
interesting you said that. I've been a MOPS mentor. MOPS is an acronym for Mothers of Preschoolers. So
Okay.
recently, like in the past few years, I've been a mentor. And then before that, when we lived in Washington State, I was on what they call the steering committee. It's like the leadership group. And
Uh-huh.
so I would write up, little things to tell the group. We had a pretty big group of moms. And like one time I wrote something on feathering the nest is what the theme was called. And so,
Hmm.
I just gave my presentation and I had a lady come up to me and she said, I loved your presentation. It was so good. Can I please use your notes? And I was surprised.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I was like, oh,
And you're like,
sure.
no, no, you
No,
can't. No.
no, I,
How
so
much
I
money
did.
you got? You can rent them out.
So no, I did give her a copy and she said she wanted to use them to give, so she could do her own presentation. But
Interesting.
yeah, but it was based on my presentation. So,
Interesting.
but it wasn't until later when we lived in San Francisco when somebody from church said, you should think about being an author. So we'll see.
So I gotcha. So yeah, Twitter is, I mean, there's an art form to Twitter, and there's an art form to Twitter interactions. Do you do a lot of interacting with atheists on Twitter, or not so much?
Probably not as much as, S.J. Thomason. I mean, she's
Yeah,
got a lot of atheists who respond to her.
yeah. I
And
always
she's
make fun of that.
very brave.
It's the
Yeah.
what was the thing? The last thing I said in my video was like, SJ. Oh my God, I hit her! I hit her! I hit her! Yeah, that SJ.
No, she's doing a really good job with, posting Christian material and, she takes a lot of heat.
Yeah, she takes a
And
lot of heat.
yeah, and I mean, there's just some rude people on Twitter and some trolls. And so, if you're somebody that's on Twitter and your feelings have been hurt, it's okay to mute the person who hurt your feelings. So sometimes
Right.
you got to do that.
Now,
But
before we um, tell us what's happening on Saturday, and you're gonna moderate. Did we decide that, or
oh yeah, so
did we figure it out?
Saturday we talked about having a debate between Dave and Paul. Dave is, I think he calls himself agnostic. Might be wrong about
Okay,
that. I need to double check. Um, so
he's
he's
like
not.
Steve. He's not an atheist. No, I'm not an atheist. I'm agnostic. What's the
Yeah, he
difference? It's a
might
big
be some.
difference.
Yeah. And then Paul is a Christian. I don't know if he calls himself a pastor. He might. I think he does some. He might do sermons. I think with like outdoor sermons for like,
Okay.
I don't know if it's inner city or homeless people, something like that.
Oh,
So
cool.
they're
Wow,
going to
that's
give their
pretty interesting.
opinion on, is Jesus the Messiah? And I love this question because, we can find out what people are saying. And, I believe Jesus is the Messiah, but I have reasons to believe that. So I am very interested to hear what um, Dave has to say
In
and
response, yeah,
why, because, he doesn't think that Jesus is the Messiah. So
right.
I really want to know, well, why? Why do you think he's not the Messiah? So I'm looking forward to that on Saturday, and it's going to be at 1 p.m. here on your channel, right?
Yes, the
Um,
first big
so
event of hopefully a series of events. This is actually a thing that I've wanted to do for a while, or had in the back of my mind, to have debates on the channel would be fun. So this is the first one, and
really,
yeah, you're going to be pioneering the whole premise of and leading the charge, and you are in fact going to moderate the debate. Did we settle that?
well,
Because
wait,
everything works.
yeah, if I can connect to, the link, then that will be fine. I'd love to help out with that. Now, wait a minute. So you have not had a debate on your channel yet?
No, no, I've done interviews on my channel, and I've done streams with like where we talk about a subject, but I've never had an actual structured debate.
Okay, well, what they have requested is they each want to do like a 10-minute introduction, and then they want to do like a 10-minute rebuttal. where they each
Okay.
speak. And then after that, they just want to do some cross examination where they can, you know, cross examine each other. So that's kind of the
Yes.
format. And it's going to be 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time. So that's on Saturday.
Yeah. So that sounds perfect. So mark your calendars, kids. We are going to have the SmackDown. You remember you saw Richard Carey versus Estee Thomason? You said nothing could top that. Well, this is going to top that. This is going to be bigger, bigger and better.
Well, they're very excited. They're really looking forward to this. They haven't, you know, done an official debate, so it's their first, and they're really excited.
Well, cool. So that sounds fun. So let's wrap it up. Tell everybody what they need to know to finalize your little introduction to my channel. And you'll be back. We'll play some Christian music at some point with Pencily if you like that idea. I thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, that'll be fun. So I'm looking forward to Saturday. And what else? Oh, you can find me at Twitter at HM Schuldt, and that's SCHULDT. And then my blog is Lady Apologist. Oh, and we also have a brand new petition filed at the White House. We just filed it today. So it's a petition to end third trimester abortions. So anyway, the deal is we have to try to get 100,000 people to sign it in 30 days. So
Okay.
uh, we're going to try to do this. So Lord help us.
So Lord help us. All right, Heather. So we are gonna sign off. So you heard it. This is Heather, and that was the beginning of her story. She'll be back on my channel a few times, and she's gonna be hosting the debate on Saturday, the showdown of the century. And
That's awesome.
That is all for today, kids.
Okay,
Good
thanks for
night.
having me, Craig.
You're welcome, Heather. You come back anytime.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye bye.